All right, greetings, Rebel. I'm Dennis Wakabayashi, and today we embark on an interstellar adventure with you on the...
We're gonna use these outtakes. You know it.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Greetings, CX Rebels. I'm Dennis Wakabayashi, and I'm here with Rob Dwyer. We are going to take you on an interstellar adventure to seek out the light and the dark sides of the Force. In our premiere episode, my trusty co-host Rob and I will scrutinize the Star Wars experience at Disney, unearthing both the natural and the unnatural aspects of the customer journey. We're going to dive into the methods Disney's employed to resurrect the legendary Star Wars brand and determine if they truly honored its legacy. So grab your lightsabers and blasters and accompany us as we spill the CXT together and decide if Disney has indeed harnessed the true nature of customer experience. This is the way.
Unnatural.
Unnatural. All right. So, Rob, before we get into things, since you are obviously the Jedi Master when it comes to Star Wars, and I'm just your Padawan, why don't you tell the audience about yourself?
Yeah, well, you may know me from the podcast Next in Queue, which, Dennis, you appeared on. Thank you very much. And you may know me from my work with Happy to or Customer Direct. I'm involved in contact center technologies, and I just love brands and I love talking to people. And so that's why we're here. And I kind of like Star Wars just a little bit. I think people know that.
For real. I mean, you're real. I can't believe how much we nerded out last week in Las Vegas about Star Wars.
Yeah. It was a good time.
All right.
We're gonna get to some of that today.
Okay. Maybe not all of it. That Tauntaun thing. Let's keep it zipped lip. All right. So, as background, Disney multimedia media conglomerate, founded in 1923 by Walt Disney. The company is known for producing animated and live action films, television shows, theme parks, and various consumer products. The big news, in 2012, Disney acquired Lucasfilm for $4 billion. Since then, they've released multiple Star Wars films, television shows, and other products, including merchandise and theme park attractions. Although it has a great fan base and has become a pop culture phenomenon with countless films, books, comics, and video games, in terms of its reputation, Disney is often regarded as a leader in the entertainment industry with a focus on creating family-friendly content and immersive experiences. However, some critics have accused the company of prioritizing profit over quality and creativity. Let's get into it.
Let's do that. Let me, before we get started, Dennis, I have a little bit of trivia for you. Did you know that the original filming of Star Wars almost caused an actual war? Did you know about this?
Whoa.
No. So, Tatooine.
Again, you're the master.
Tatooine.
Okay.
You know, they filmed that on location in Tunisia. And Tunisia shares a border with Libya. And Libya at the time was run by the infamous Muammar Gaddafi. And he said, you better get that military vehicle off our border or I'm coming for you. You know what that vehicle was?
Was it a land speeder?
No.
Oh, no, it was the Jawas thing?
Yeah, it was the Jawa sandcrawler. Nearly caused a war between Tunisia and Libya during the filming of the original episode.
All right, I'm going to go with you. Let's just go right down the Star Wars rabbit hole. Let's talk about Jawas and Sand People. Did you know they were the same race?
What are you telling me? What are you telling me right now, Dennis? What are you telling me?
Tatooine used to be a thriving economy, one of the best planets in the galaxy. Not on the ass end of the galaxy. It used to be the central hub of a lot of commerce. And the Galactic Empire came in with their Star Destroyers and glassed the whole planet. And when they did that, Some of them went underground, Jawas, and the Sand People stayed above. The Jawas were peaceful. They were like hiding out, trying to like bunker down. And the Sand People were above in the hostile environment. Thousands of years later of evolution, here we are.
Turns out that hostile environment is good for height. Is that?
I guess so. Or caves are not so great for height. Okay, one or the other.
That's probably more about it. So before we get into the dark side and the light side of CX, let's talk about kind of the framework that we actually want to present things within. So the CX framework that we're going to talk about has three major components, right? You want to share with us what those major components are?
Sure.
You probably don't know them because you've never talked about them, right? This is all new.
That's right.
Okay.
I can't believe you sprung the CX conversation on me. Okay. Three R's of customer experience. It really takes these 3 R's to create the complete unified customer experience. You have reputation, the thing that drives the brand or the recognition. You have the reach. How far does this customer experience reach out into new audiences? And the relationship that the customer experience creates with the existing customers. So we're really going to be talking about the momentum of the experience through reputation, the growth of CX or growth of the brand through its reach, and then we're going to talk about the stability and its customer lifetime value and relationship. And with that said, in the podcast today, we've agreed to dissect the brand in these 3 categories. And I thought maybe we could just start with reputation. And let's start with the light side of the Star Wars Disney CX. What do you like about it, Rob?
So let me just tell you something, Dennis. When I saw the trailers for The Mandalorian, and this was when Disney Plus was launching, I knew no matter how much it was going to cost me that I was going to be a subscriber. Like, that was happening. And, the price was reasonable. But I was given content that was absolutely top notch, and maybe even more than I anticipated. But my bar was high, right? So their reputation made me say, I don't care. I'm getting Disney Plus. I want to see this. And then they absolutely hit it out of the park with the first season of The Mandalorian. I think Andor followed that up. A really, really strong storytelling. So for me, that reputation just made me a buyer right out of the gate. What about you?
What I think is interesting about what you just said in terms of reputation is one of the things I try to teach at the colleges or in workshops is the creation of good experiences. And one of those elements is nostalgia or having a good memory, right? If an experience is memorable and it feels comfortable, nostalgic, something that we can relate to, then it tends to resonate or stay with us longer. And if we as CX professionals can tap into that nostalgia, then and that familiarity, then we can move the business lever of revenue, of trying to get customer behavior. And I think you described that perfectly in terms of you had this feeling, this familiar sense of the brand. Then they went on and they did something with it, and it moved you to have a customer behavior of subscribing. So I think that is a perfect example of how to leverage reputation, historic momentum to drive customer experiences. +1 to you. I'm going to give that, I'm going to give that a blue lightsaber wave. Great job.
No, I've got my Mace Windu's behind me in the studio background there. So I'm going with the purple.
Are those
lightsabers. They're not really lightsabers,
wielding?
but I like to I like to pretend a little bit that they look like lightsabers.
Are they vibro staves?
I don't know what that is, but I think it sounded dirty, and I'm not sure we should be talking about
Whoa.
it.
The vibro blades were a precursor to the lightsaber. Mandalorian armor also can deflect vibro weapons. All right.
Who's the Padawan here?
Wow.
We're not sure. Sure. Okay. Give me your...
You were once the teacher, but now I was once the student, but now I'm the master.
That's
okay.
Right.
Here's a customer experience that I felt drove an incredible amount of new reputation moments for a lot of fans. It was the Knights of the Old Republic video game. I don't know if you remember it. It was released in 2003. You might be a little too young for this. But
too young for this. 2003. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you were in college. You're a young guy. You're young and handsome. What can I say?
How young do you think I am? Wow. Or how long do you think it took me to go through college? Maybe it's the better question. On the 9-year plan, he's still in college.
Maybe you were doing what I was doing with Knights of the Old Republic. True story. Knights of the Old Republic was the last time I ever ditched work to play a video game. I literally started playing this game and I called in sick because I was like, I'm not moving from this game. It was so enthralling. If you remember, did you play it?
I did not play it, but it's not because I was still in college. Just so we're clear.
It was a game. We're clear. You were out battling rebels on Hoth, maybe. The game was first person. It was a story adventure game. It had a lot of new technical immersive qualities for the time that allowed you to become a character in the universe. So if you remember, we had gone all this time without Star Wars movies. We finally get this game. It's fantastic. I played it. I literally sat and I stayed until I played it all the way through. True story. So there again is, I think, an example of crafting a wider reputation with a new audience by relying on the experiences that the customer wants to have and the innovation that it took to bring that to market, not just in technology, but storytelling. Mm-hmm. In that game, you could be both, your actions amounted to either being on the light side or the dark side.
Yeah, I think that's
fulfilled a lot of fantasies.
The immersive quality and the almost choose your own adventure like aspect to that, I think really brought people in, and they wanted to do exactly what you did, Dennis, was just not go to work anymore, just play. What
and now we're podcasting.
Which saber do we get with that? Because I think that was pretty good myself.
Oh, well,
but you also skipped work, which I don't know. Is that a light side behavior?
Okay, moving on. Great point. I think to summarize that in terms of the customer experience, what's important there is these things that you've described, both in the past and the present we've described, are aspects of the Star Wars brand that galvanized itself positively in the minds of consumers. Mm-hmm. And I think what we're going to talk about later is maybe the dark side and why isn't there more of that, or is there enough of that? And we're going to talk to that. Oh, and I have a surprise for you. Guess what I have? You're not ready. Bringing this on you.
Uh-oh.
No. So we're gonna pontificate about this for a little while, have some fun.
Let me get my pontificating face on. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
So after we pontificate, I happen to have had a meeting today where it was just coincidental that the person I was speaking to recently had conducted over 4,500 surveys on Star Wars. And I have the stats from that survey about their customer experience in my hands. So not only are we going to talk about the good and the bad, I'm going to reveal what the people really think and how far we are off. So moving on, Reach. So reach is about acquiring new audiences. Let's talk about what you think Star Wars is doing right when it comes to reach.
Dennis, did you ever watch Spaceballs? The
Yes.
Mel Brooks parody. I think in that movie, Mel Brooks got it exactly right with merchandising, everything Star Wars. So you can see right behind me, right? I have Lego Star Wars behind me, but you can get, we've both got our Star Wars tea mugs. These are not the only things that you can get branded Star Wars, whether it's home decor, clothing, toys. You can get Star Wars soap, Dennis. Dr. Squatch has Star Wars soap, and they have all kinds of different Star Wars soap. And so when you think about the ability to impress the image of Star Wars on people to gain new fans, or people go, what is that? I think they do an amazing job with their merchandising.
I think when people think about merchandising, they initially think about toys. But you bring up a great point, which is this entryway into everyone's lives is a great way to expand the experience. And I'll tell you, I do have some Star Wars chopsticks that light up. So there's that.
That's awesome.
But when we think about the entry point into people's lives, let me say this. Here's the secret to customer experience no one ever talks about, because you can't sell it. The true nature of customer experience is that every human being desires to be the hero of their own story. And a brand's job is to empower a person to be that hero of their own story. So many people in the industry, in the commercial aspect of transactions and teaching and consulting, talk about the connection of a brand and the relationship it has with the customer as the CX. But the customer experience is personal and it belongs to each individual. And you hit that right on the head, I believe, when you said, there's these products that allow us to have home decor or smell like a Wookiee from soap, or use chopsticks that are lightsabers. It's all elements of way for us to incorporate that brand into our reality where we're the main character. So that's a really insightful way to describe reach as an effective customer experience strategy.
Do I smell like a Wookiee? I don't think so. Okay.
When I was with you, I think you smelled sort of like, who you want to smell like if you're a character is Lando.
Oh, yeah.
That guy smells good.
100. He smells good.
All right. I'm going to talk about reaching customers in a similar but different vein, which is Star Wars Galaxy Edge, that themed part of Disney World, Disneyland. That thing, I think, has been a major draw in terms of when that experience or those rides was elevated to the level of It's a Small World or Treasure Island. Is that what it was called? Treasure Island? So. When you have it, sort of validated those experiences. And when we talk about these experiences at the theme parks, I was at Disney World with my son once, and he did the thing where he must have been 8. He had a little lightsaber. He got on stage. Darth Vader came out. He got off stage, and we were watching the next batch of young Jedi's, Padawans, face Darth Vader, and the stormtroopers came out ahead of Vader, and one of the little boys ran across the stage and dove down in front of the stormtroopers and put his hands out for a force push, and without missing a single beat, both stormtroopers threw themselves back onto the ground. The little boy's eyes lit up. My eyes lit up. These are the kind of experiences that you craft that create the nostalgia. They reinforce this notion of being your own hero.
Exactly,
and it's all a way to reach the minds and hearts. So maybe what we're talking about is reach is not only about acquisition of new customers, but it's reaching the hearts and minds of customers.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Have you ever done the Galaxy Edge thing?
Not yet. I would like to do it this fall. I'm going to be in Orlando. We'll see if it happens.
Okay.
But I'm excited.
May the force be with you.
I'm going to need it. And also a little cash be with me. Because it's...
I think we're going to get into that part of the customer experience, aren't we? Yeah. All right. Let's talk about relationships. So this is the part that most people confuse with CX. The relationship is the customer lifetime value, having a deeper connection to your existing customers, and give me your best relationship experience with Star Wars you think that's in the marketplace today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Star Wars does great, I mean, we're dropping this episode on May 4th, and for the last, I don't know how long, May 4th has been known as Star Wars Day, right? It's May the 4th be with you, just like May the Force be with you. And that's an opportunity for the fans to have a day to celebrate. And there are special events that happen along those lines. You know, obviously, like I said, I'm a Lego Star Wars guy, and Lego comes out with a special event to coincide with May 4th and special promos that go along with that. And so that's just one of those ways that I can continue to build that relationship is we have a day where we can all celebrate and do some special things. And I think that act of every major religious tradition has special rituals and days that are special. And when a brand can use that same type of thing where we all come together and celebrate as a group that are fans of a brand, that really does something to how we feel about that brand. And I think they do an amazing job with that.
You know, I'm going to tell you, speaking of relationship, my relationship with you, we haven't known each other very long. We sort of bonded on Star Wars, and I love the energy and the thinking that we have between us because you open my eyes. Like every time you say something, I'm inspired about an aspect of CX. And I'll tell you right there, when you talked about the relationship being May the 4th, you're not talking about just the relationship between the brand. You're talking about the relationship between the customers, creating community. Mm-hmm. Loyalty to a brand, me loyal to Star Wars is one thing. Me and you loyal to Star Wars is an entirely different thing. And I think that's a really great insight. So much of what Star Wars Disney is suffering from right now is the decay of the community. So to your point, May the 4th, getting behind that and celebrating that just a little more with the fans could go a really long way with the relationship. Mm-hmm. Great point. All right. Mine is very similar, unsurprisingly, following you. I think that Star Wars has fostered a great fan community. This is also sort of a double-edged sword. I'm not certain how well the fan community, their cosplay, fan fiction, artwork is being supported now, especially since the intellectual property law and the business of doing business has sort of taken a front seat in driving versus the creativity or the fantasy. But what I will say is, do you remember there was this time where when YouTube started, a lot of people were doing fan stuff, Star Wars stuff, and there was a little bit of hesitation by Lucas. And ultimately what I saw play out was it was just allowed. And it was sort of like don't ask, don't tell for a while. But it wasn't actively subverted, you know? Yeah. So I think Disney still has a chance to celebrate the fans. And if they do that, what can I just ask you, what's wrong with co-creation as a leading force in customer experience?
Leading force. You just said that. I want to point that out. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think look, I get where Disney's coming from, right? They have to protect their brand. At the same time, you can create even bigger fans when you invite them into the process, or at least maybe not invite, allow them to feel like they're part of the process. Star Wars Legends, which for those that don't know, there are books and comics out there that are technically not canon, but they are, they were part of the story, and they're still around, but maybe not ultimately considered the story. But the people that enjoyed those stories, that wrote those stories, like, they really did that out of love for Star Wars. And I think there's a lot to be said for allowing people a little bit of, like, let's just let them get in and have fun with it and become even bigger fans.
The irony that Winnie the Pooh can be a serial killer now, and we can't get certain fan films, is terrifying on a bunch of levels. Let me throw some Star Wars trivia at you. Speaking of The Mandalorian, because you liked that, and I agree with you on your points about Mandalorian and Andor. The Admiral Thrawn was in Legends, and now he's coming through in The Mandalorian and getting some play there. So that's kind of interesting.
In Rebels.
The other thing,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, I watched like 5 episodes of Rebels and then fast forwarded through and then just watched the highlights on YouTube. Did you watch the Rebels?
I did, but we're going to talk about I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. I'm just going to hold off. Oh. Did I watch it all? Yes, absolutely. And I enjoyed it.
Okay. I know there were some, not going to lie, I watched the Ahsoka Darth Vader thing like 7 times. So I'm a little bit caught up there.
Parts of it were
one of the
amazing.
things, the animated, we're going to talk. So here's the other thing I want to say about canon and relationships with customers. Did you see that they retconned Rex into The Last Jedi? That was beautiful.
Yeah. Was it beautiful? It was fine.
Rex? I mean, in the whole world of fantasy, there's like Rex, Master Chief, like Bilbo Baggins. Come on, these are like timeless heroes.
You just brought Bilbo Baggins into the conversation. I think you're mixing fantasy worlds. I don't know if that's allowed. Is that allowed?
We're headed into the dark side, so I just need to hear your honest breakdown. You didn't like retconning Rex in Ahsoka's boy? I mean,
I didn't.
He bucked Order 66.
I understand. I'm just saying I didn't need
it.
I didn't think it was necessary. But it's fine. It was fan service. I'm all for fan service.
Wow.
To a point, so it's fine.
I just led this segment by saying how much I really liked getting to know you, and then this. Okay. Speaking of the dark side, let's talk about the dark side of Disney's reputation. And one of the things I liked about the idea of doing this podcast with you is we're really avoiding the topics that are charged on the internet. I think that these topics, keeping it in a customer experience light is important. I hope somebody from Disney listens to this and understands the points we're making about nostalgia, about reaching customers through empowering them to be the heroes of their own stories and fostering relationships, especially across communities. Now, having said that, as a recap on the light side, if I'm a Disney executive, I guarantee you what they're going to say is, duh, we do that. But I have some stats here. Let me just say, according to the fans, just so you know, here's where they split out on the actual numbers. If you ask the fans, do you think more or less people, Rob, are happy with the content?
Which content are we talking about? Are we talking about the new Disney Plus content? Are we talking about the last 3 episodes of the Jedi or of the Skywalker? What are we talking about?
I love that. I love that you got technical there. So here's what I have in terms of this analysis. And to be fair, one of my favorite sayings is if you interrogate the data long enough, it'll tell you anything you want to hear. But I got this third party, so I didn't influence this data. Here's the split: red, yellow, green. Green is how much people their sentiment was. Yellow means they're mid, and red means they're dissatisfied from a sentiment. And the content is, you could think of it as a word cloud of Star Wars on the internet.
Okay.
So take that for what you will. But basically, the mass algorithmic content that's out there, the conversations, ratings, and reviews are included in this.
Can I guess?
Do you think? Sure.
I'm gonna say 60%, give or take, happy, and at least 25% unhappy, and the rest in the middle, because there's a contingent of people that will hate on just about anything, and it might be more than 25.
Are you
That's what I'm putting at.
Are you using your Jedi Force powers with me? You're very close. About 25%, about 20% of people, about 20% of people like it still. 30% of people dislike it, and the rest are all mid.
Wow, that many in the middle, huh?
It's double. You combined bad. Mm-hmm. The haters and the appreciators are neck and neck, but the mids have it. And here's it goes to one of my other theories, which is on the internet, I believe the vast majority of people are either haters or they're either instigators or they're retaliators. Interesting. That's my take. Okay, let's head on into the dark side. Dark side. What's the first thing when you think about the Disney reputation? You failed me for the last time, Rob. Okay, the reputation. What's one sort of dark side part of the Disney reputation in terms of CX?
I mean, you've heard of this Galactic Star Cruiser hotel they've got, right? Like, look, they wanted...
That's all I'm ever going to do is hear about it.
Me too. They wanted people to pony up $5,000 for 2 nights of forced cosplay and no windows in a tiny little cabin and feel like you're in the Star Wars world. Like, I get it. People like to cosplay. They like to be immersed, right? You're talking about the theme park experiences and the video game experiences. That immersion is it's a big thing for a lot of people, but to pay that much for an experience that by accounts that I have heard is less than stellar seems like someone made a miscalculation somewhere, and they put a lot of money into that, and I think it's a small disaster.
Let's break that down. So, first of all, I think $5,000 might have been the discounted price. And it costs more than a Disney cruise, I heard. In the Disney cruise, you are the hero of your family in your own adventure. On this other thing, you're a loser all the way around. It's cost prohibitive. So my question is, how does this happen? So it's created such a bad reputation. I think some of the things that we know and love Disney for, quality, that was a little tarnished reputation. I think that we've often had this idea that while Disney was more expensive, it was a value because of the
And
Disney magic.
attainable. Yeah,
How much
and
does
attainable to the average family, you know? Like maybe not every year or even every other year, but you could save up and you could make a trip to Disney happen. I mean, when you start talking that kind of money, it's too much.
All right, I'm gonna ask you a harder question about that. I'm a Disney executive. I understand that people want to ride on one of these spaceships like overnight. Everyone wants to, Rob. Everyone does.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to make that happen. And not only that, I'm going to bring the Disney magic into this hotel, and I'm going to make it completely immersive. Okay? And I'm going to do this. And I get in there and I'm like, wow, this thing costs a little more than expected. What do you do as an executive? It's
a good question. What they should have done, is said, we have our reputation to protect, and we are going to make this either better, more affordable, and if we can't do those two things, then we're just going to scrap it and take the loss, because to me, it's not worth the tarnishment that they put on themselves by moving forward and at that price point and at that experience. Now,
well, thanks a lot, Rob. If this thing goes away, I'd love to know what was in the mind of a Disney executive when that happened, because here's the thing. What we can't do is punish Disney for trying to create this experience. One of the things that gets under my skin is how people try to penalize the creativity. Like, you can't have it both ways. You want us to go spend $1 billion on a hotel and try to create this completely real you as the hero of your own story? How much does that cost? Or do you want us to just kick another stuffed animal down the road? So I think I applaud them for doing it, but what do they do? So as leaders, you and I, what do they do to get out of this? Let's spitball a couple of things. I'd love to hear from the audience what Disney should have done. But here we are. We have this experience. So experiences are valuable over time and cost over time. So either the experience wasn't long enough. So if $5,000 got you 5 days or 10 days, maybe that's worth it, but that might not be cost effective. They could have built around this experience and staggered it. So there was an expensive experience in the center, followed by lower cost experiences, and you sort of started in the center and your journey kept you moving through. So I think from an experience perspective, putting everybody in a box and making them walk around in circles could have been entirely different than if they would have started you in the high end, let you stay overnight, then you go down to camp at the Tatooine village, and then so on. So I think there was a way to stagger the cost of the experiences and the production of the experiences over time to create greater value with each of the customers. Plus, there's definitely ways you could have tied in existing experiences that have already paid for themselves that you could combine, bundle. That being said, I heard the Fast Pass was not really, ultimately the math didn't quite work out. And their original system was a ticket system where you paid more for the bigger attractions and less for the less, and that controlled the crowds better. So I think that's another lesson of put the most expensive things where the least amount of people are.
All right. How about you? Reputation, dark side.
Oh my goodness. I was scared when we did this podcast to even bring this up.
Oh boy.
And I'm not going to get into it with any fans. I'm just not. I'm struggling not to name call, but this hit me solid. So I raised my children. Here's a fun Star Wars fact. Hope I don't get sued for IP infringement. My youngest daughter At that time, Rob, we did not have TVs in every room. And when she went to bed at night, I would tell her a story. And I didn't really have enough material of my own. So I just started out with I literally started with this spaceship up in space capturing another ship by tractor beam, and these two droids fleeing with this secret message to this wizard, the space wizard.
Such a great
dad. It wasn't
such a great storyteller.
It wasn't until she was about 13 or 14 when she came home and she said, "Did you make up that story, or was that Star Wars?" And I was like, "It was Star Wars." Busted. So I was heavily invested into the Star Wars lore, and my family is all Star Wars. Hence, this Anakin cutout was a gift from my middle child to my youngest child for Christmas. That's how into it we are. Anyway, I think the biggest reputation challenge, maybe not the biggest challenge, but I think where it all started to unravel was with the trilogy, the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. I think there was high stakes, and I'll bring up another. There's been a beer brand that's been in the hot seat for a little while about some inclusion activity and a lot of backlash on the internet. And I think Disney made the same mistake with the trilogy and continues to make the same mistake. And here's what it is. When you go for reach before you deal with reputation, or you go for reach before you deal with relationships in your CX, you are setting yourself for the exact opposite of what you intend. I'll give you the first example on something that's less emotional for me, which is the beer thing. And I watched the marketing director. I studied that and that marketing director was solid. If you followed the course of action that the marketing director took, including younger people, a different kind of dynamic in the home, and then followed up with a special kind of contextually relevant women empowerment message, and then it went on. But what they didn't do was they didn't discuss the reach with their existing customers before they made the reach. So here's an example. I guarantee you, there isn't a Coors Light drinker I know who doesn't have a chill streak in them. If you would have gone to the existing customers and said, "Listen, let's open up this party to a wider group. Let's invite more people to the party," and then done it, would have been just fine. I think what happened with the Star Wars thing is there was a view that George was not at the helm. And so the question in our minds was, who's running this? And a simple little, "Hey, you guys are part of running this. Let's get you involved in the sequels." It would have been glory days. It would have been the new renaissance of Star Wars. But instead, there was a rush to reach all these people without the memorable, the nostalgia, the things that we're comfortable and familiar with. So I just think that it was a pivotal moment. And I think the lesson to every CXer out there is, before you make a change, check in with your existing customers and invite them to be part of the change.
Yeah, that's we're having a lot of fun with this for sure, but I think that is a really valuable lesson. And it's easy to make mistakes, and it can be really hard to get back to where you were pre-mistake with your customers and with your fans. If you make a big misstep, it can be a struggle for real.
It's just like the Coors thing. The party is going along, bumping along fine, and then the music stops. And you're like, wait, now we got to get it all going again. All right, let's talk about reach. The dark side of Disney and Star Wars reach with their customers. What are you thinking about today?
So I don't know if this is I I struggle with this. Is this dark side or is this maybe not dark side? But we talked a little bit earlier about some of the animated series, including Rebels. And my wife, who loves Star Wars, refuses to watch any of the animated series. She's like, that's for kids.
Same.
And look, I think all Star Wars is for kids, including big kids.
Okay.
Including big kids like us. It's okay. But I do think that the animation in particular, and it started with Clone Wars. And I thought Clone Wars was brilliant, but I thought the first season and a half of Clone Wars treated the animation with kid gloves. And that's not what Star Wars has always done. They have treated kids like adults. They have dealt with very adult themes and not put on the kid gloves. We had fun with it and it was fantasy, but we talked about really big and deep themes within all of the movies without pandering and saying, oh, well, but I want to make sure that, you can handle this if you're 5. Star Wars didn't do that. And I thought Clone Wars made a mistake in kind of doing that early on. And then they tried to grow out of that. And I think they did grow out of it, but you have a really hard time for some people to even get that far into it because of the way it started. And then you have the animation style, which was controversial for each of these different animated series have different animation styles. And I think that turned some people off. They were just like, well, I don't like this style of animation. And so they didn't want to watch it. And I think, unfortunately, there's some great storytelling there that gets missed for those reasons.
So you're saying that they could have reached more audiences by not diversifying the animation style?
I think the animation style, but more importantly, and again, I go back to Clone Wars, not pandering. I think they right. This show originally came out on Disney XD. I think they knew their target were young kids, but they did the thing that Star Wars never did, and they pandered. And I think if you just do what Star Wars has always done, which is tell really good stories, then it doesn't matter if you're 5 or you're 50, it's a good story and people will pay attention to that. People will enjoy it. And so I think that was the big mistake they made with Clone Wars as the first animated series to follow on to the movies. And
wow,
it could have a bigger audience.
It's always challenging, right? When you're trying to reach new audiences. But I agree with you. Again, I think what I heard you say there was in the Star Wars movies, the original content, each demographic could portray themselves in that story, right? And in the future renditions, I think there was a rush to reach people and tell them how they fit into the story as opposed to let them explore the universe. I thought it was really interesting what George Lucas said. One of his reactions to seeing the sequels was he was disheartened because he said, there's only 3 things you need to have in a Star Wars movie: a new world, a new place, a new technology, and a new character.
Yeah.
And I guess new animation style on top of that might be a little much. Okay. Let's talk about why did I pick all the controversial things? Okay, so yes, on the animation, technically challenging for reaching new audiences, not maybe employing the best dynamic for storytelling in the context of the Star Wars universe that we know and love. Fair. But here's what I've been following is the controversy surrounding the depiction of female and minority characters in the sequel trilogy has led to criticism of Disney's commitment to diversity and inclusion, potentially limiting the reach of Star Wars to audiences who feel marginalized or excluded by these portrayals. Now, of course, that's a lot of fancy lingo. I'll tell you my take on it. Again, let's just bypass the instigators and the retaliators on the internet. Everybody has an opinion on who belongs where. We're talking about a galaxy full of all aliens compared to humans, right? I don't think we've met any Earthlings in the Star Wars universe. Androids, okay? All different classes. I think that Andor, I think, got this right. When you talk about postmodernism as an art form, it's typically classless and raceless. And I think that to some degree, when we were growing up, Star Wars was reaching for this postmodernistic society or universe. I don't know how we got back into the conflict of what droids have to be liberated and, all these other topics. When, again, I hate to be on this rant, I just struggle to find myself as my own hero in the Star Wars universe when I'm afraid that I'm going to trigger either another fan or trigger, like, what am I allowed to believe in anymore? Han Solo shot first. That was the thing, bro. Like I had to process it as a child, but I got it. I got it as an art form because it contextually sort of set up a distinct archetype. And all of these homogenized characters, it's like we're being told who to root for or who to root against, who we're supposed to identify with. I think that in terms of reaching new audiences, I just think it was trying too hard. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Here's what I think I hear from you is that a genuine character, flaws, and the great things about them is more important than trying to fit things nicely in, because, right, great characters are flawed. Han Solo was flawed. And that's what makes a great character. And when you forget about what makes a great character and you're trying to appeal to certain things, that can cause you to make some missteps.
100%. And you just inspired me again. What I'm really saying is and to agree with you is characters are not necessarily formulas or archetypes or stereotypes or classifications or descriptions. A complex environment and of storytelling that doesn't necessarily have it all figured out is where I think the doorway to imagination and letting the customer create their own experience. And I just think that where we've gone with the content with Disney is there is a rush to reach new audiences. And if they would have just continued to nurture the audiences that they had, I bet you the new audiences that they had would have brought the new audience with them. Okay.
Yep.
Last one.
Well,
then when you get into some social media, I want your reactions. All right. Relationships. Let's talk about relationship CX, Rob. The dark side of the relationship.
Well, I'm going to tell you about a relationship that was dark and I did not like. And I'm going to tell you why I did not like it. And that is the relationship between Rey, the hero of episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Okay.
And she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Wow. And you and I talked about this in Vegas, like lazy storytelling, but it's not the laziness that we originally you weren't sure who her parents were. Maybe they were nobody. But here's what really irked me about this. And that is that what we've been talking about is being the hero in your own story, and how the possibility is there, and Rey coming from nothing, as we were told at one point when Kylo Ren says your parents were nothing, right? They were beggars. They sold you. They were nothing. What that means at that moment is anyone can rise and become awesome, right? That all of us, regardless of where we're starting, we've got this opportunity to do great things in the world. And by attaching Rey to Palpatine, and you've already got this Skywalker thing going on, it gives this feeling that you have to be part of a special family to rise to greatness. And I think that is the wrong message to send in the story. And I really liked the idea of Rey not being part of a special family and still becoming the strongest Jedi that ever was. Like, it wasn't who her father or grandfather or whatever. And that's what disappointed me so much. That relationship.
The irony that you're drawing a correlation between Palpatine and privilege. Hashtag Palpatine privilege. You're right. Couching Rey as needing to be a descendant of some force in the universe in order to be valid. That's another irony. But let me just say, unpopular opinion probably. Mm-hmm. As you were saying that, I couldn't help but see Lucasfilm as Rey and Disney as the Empire, and trying to figure out what to do with this thing. Had they just let it nurture its existing audience, come from nothing and be something spectacular, but instead there was so much pressure to make this character be so much more than it was so fast. It cut a lot of corners for the customer experience in terms of, I think what you're saying there is our relationship with Luke was over many, many, many years. Mm-hmm. And then we invite this new character and we're okay, but let us get to know her. Let us go on the journey with her. And I think that the continuity of creative. So here, let me say this, just point blank. George Lucas, a craftsman of customer experience.
For sure.
Okay. He was not just a filmmaker. He crafted those experiences. And I think when you take a content property or an idea and you toss it to a machine and say, make this profitable, make this happen in a certain amount of time, when you put the emphasis on the profits and the machinations of a corporate machine, I think you run the risk of this happening. And I wouldn't say that this is exclusive to Disney either. I think anytime you take your lead CX person out of the pocket and you don't put someone else in there with an equally clear vision for the existing customers, you're going to be in deep trouble. It just doesn't pay. It doesn't pay to switch gears on CX like that without including your existing customers. Your number one CX person should be the person who is the closest in behavior or is an actual customer who understands the business machine, but understands the customer first. And I'm sort of preaching to the choir, but you see this happen so many times. And here's why I think it happens. The thing that people get wrong, and they got this wrong in the beer situation too. the shareholders, the shareholders don't care about the customers.
That's true.
The CEO is held accountable to the customers, and the people in charge of CX are accountable to the CEO. But I see it so many times when you elevate customer experience or customer voice of customer or needs of the customer, if you elevate it too high in the organization at the very top, it's the shareholders who are like, I don't even buy this product. I buy a share. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And they drive so many decisions. So I just think it's a little dysfunctional. You know, George Lucas is still being held accountable for the things that have come out of that.
To be
so
I think he owns like 2% of Disney now. So
he's not doing too bad, but he's not the lead CX guy. No. I think Favreau's trying to do that, but again, he's facing the machine, the shareholders. And unfortunately, that dynamic, the more customers don't like it, the more the machine pushes harder. So you're going to need a breakthrough stunt or something to turn the tide. So before we get into some solutions here, I want to talk about, because I'm on the same tip with you in the relationship. This is where the relationship for me sort of started to drift. Was I grew up, even though I was born into a Japanese household, I for some reason saw myself as Luke Skywalker, which that is perfect for being in a family post World War II in the United States. Mm-hmm. Fun fact, Rob, our family fought on the side of the U.S. in the Army during World War II. So we had a really interesting dynamic going on with our culture and that sort of thing. That said, coming out of that and being able to see myself as Luke Skywalker, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about inclusion in creative or experiences, I don't know what does. But where I sort of lost it was when they never gave us the Luke Skywalker portrayal. I think one of the reasons you might like The Mandalorian is it did deliver on Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Everything, we never saw Luke Skywalker do his thing. I'm still not convinced we did. And then on the big screen, he phoned it in. He literally Zoomed called to the battle. He's like, hold on. Nah, I can't come in today. And so I'm just going to, be here for a little while, but then I'm going to be camera off. Okay, guys? And that's exactly what happened. And I was just thinking, you know what everyone knows what I was thinking. So I just think, and here's what I think is really great. Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill has been fighting to get this Luke Skywalker show done. If that happens, I heard some conversation that they were going to do a Luke Skywalker show and they were going to use CGI to bring back the old crew. And the basic premise was, thank you for the sequels. But what we really wanted to see was Han, Leia, Luke, after their Death Star, like in their 40s, have an epic mission, which that's exactly what I wanted. And I guarantee you, if I would have had that movie at the sequels, the sequels, my children, my grandchildren, and their grandchildren would still be talking about that. Anyway. That being said, all right, let's talk about some stuff, Rob. I want to get into some people's opinions besides us. I'm going to read you some social media posts, and I want to just get your reaction to them.
Okay.
This is from Exploding Unicorn, and I thought this was an interesting commentary on the storytelling. Exploding Unicorn post, the dad is asking, who's your favorite in the new Star Wars movie? The 5-year-old says, Kylo Ren. He says, I'm suddenly very concerned with where our relationship is headed. So the dad says, you can't like Kylo Ren. He killed his dad. And the 5-year-old says, maybe he deserved it. Just an interesting, how do you feel about that? What do you want to say about that? From a storytelling
son relationship is fraught with challenges. And I think there's a dark side to all of us. Even when we're 5, maybe we didn't get ice cream after dinner and we wanted it. And when you're 5, that has a pretty big impact. Maybe he was just setting the stage for Dairy Queen next week when I ask for it, Dad. That's all.
I would definitely give my child whatever he wanted. No, I think, to be fair, it's an internet post. It's made to cause us to think. It's funny. It's a commentary, but even Darth Vader. I guess Luke killed Vader, didn't he? Okay, there you have it.
I mean,
it's canon. All right, moving on. It was a meme.
Killed Vader, but that's, he kind of fried him with a
fair point. But then who killed Palpatine? Wasn't it Palpatine's kid?
I mean,
granddaughter.
Realized that he never died, right? Somehow he's returned, and then
eventually Han's still alive. That's
kills Palpatine.
Well, and isn't she a Palpatine?
Yeah.
Matt Johnson said, I tried to shield my kids from the horrors of the world, but someday they'll know about the Star Wars prequels.
Look, I was that person. I hated on the prequels. I did. I hated on them. Part of it was my age. Part of it was it didn't necessarily match up to the nostalgia that I had when they came out. But I will tell you, they are not as bad in hindsight as I felt like they were then. Yes, is the last 20 minutes of Revenge of the Sith really the most important part? Absolutely, 100%. Are there some really great things going on in the prequels? Yes. There are some things that aren't great, but they're not a horror. They're not that.
Well, okay. Here's another unpopular opinion. I'm just going to out myself. When was the last time you watched A New Hope?
Probably within the last 2 years.
Okay.
Sure, within the last 2 years.
Which is better, Phantom Menace or A New Hope?
In what way are you asking this question?
Nice one. We're going to just go over that. I find myself watching those. I find myself watching the prequels more often than any of the other ones. I tried to watch the trilogy recently, and I fast forward to like 4 scenes, and I just fast forward to the scenes I wanted. All right, next one. Pixelate Boat, aka Mr. Tweets, said, "Hey, it's a Star Wars movie. Just don't think about it too much. Just sit back and enjoy it. Just sit back and enjoy this incomprehensible migraine-inducing mess of people running around screaming while planets explode."
I mean, to be fair, there's some crazy stuff going on in the Star Wars galaxy, and there are times when I'm glad I don't exist in it. Certainly not on Alderaan. That would have been a bad day, and you would have got a really good tan. So I get where he's coming from.
It's called Star Wars. It's fantasy. Everybody's going to have an opinion. I'm with you. I just, I don't want to be on a high horse. We don't have any answers. I think what we could say is there's some fundamentals. Disney, if you're listening, in your next maneuvers, focus on your existing relationships and your reputation before you get out there. We already see it. There's a bunch of new stuff coming out to reach new customers, and there's still reputation opportunity, and there's still a relationship opportunity. If I were you, I would do something drastic, like create a Star Wars official social media platform and let everybody from Star Wars congregate and participate in the conversation, it would be a unifier of those who still love the brand. And those folks, those men and women of the galaxy, would help to reunite all of the other people who love being the hero of their own stories, sci-fi, fantasy, good versus evil. It's all still there. It just needs a unifying factor. So anyway, something like that. What do you think they should do, Rob?
Call it Twitter Chlorians.
Wow. Wow, that was fantastic. Okay.
I'm just giving them a name.
That was beyond good. I'm going to leave you with the couple other stats about the customer experience. The games and consoles, TV, the games. Do more people like them, feel mid, or hate them?
Oh, I'm going to go more people like them.
Over half the people dislike the gaming experience.
Wow.
Yeah, because what we hear is about you think about it, we hear about all the amazing things, reviewers, content creators, but what about all the people like, I hated it, I'm done.
Yeah, very interesting.
Here's another one. This is probably obvious. Are they mid? More people like, dislike, or like the Disney subscription?
From a content standpoint, I would say they like. There is a ton of content, whether or not they like it at the price.
Now think about it. It's this is the context of Star Wars only.
Yeah,
Star Wars fans.
Do they like? Yeah, it's everything. Everything's there in one place.
Over 70% of people talking about Star Wars are not happy with the subscription.
That blows my mind. And maybe this is a poll of Star Wars fans, correct? Not the general public?
This is a survey of the random public on the internet who's writing in reviews across all the platforms.
You know what this says? We're biased. And I get that. I'm biased.
No question about that. We're biased. Rob, let's talk about, thank you for talking about Star Wars with me. I'm glad we did this first show that we could be nerds or geeks or fans. What is the proper
all of those
term? Don't come at me, people. I'm all of those things.
All of those.
This podcast, we're going to be breaking down reputation, reach, and relationship of another big brand coming up. I think next week we're going to be talking about Apple. Apple has a lot of things coming out.
Exciting stuff.
So that should be fun.
Exciting stuff. You know what I think people should do is they should subscribe, right? Get notified. Subscribe. There's going to be more episodes.
That's right. There's going to be more episodes. If we don't get canceled after this first one for saying some things that weren't towing a corporate line.
And this is saying,
I think that's right.
Smash that like button and tell us how much you liked our conversation in the comments, or disliked. It's fine. Just don't get us canceled.
It's open, and anybody who wants to talk to us in the comments about this, we welcome that engagement. I'm curious if there are fans or people who are not fans anymore that can have a conversation with us in the comments that's constructive around creating better customer experiences. The whole purpose of this podcast was to try to set the stage for ways that we can collaborate, co-create a harmony with Disney and the story of Star Wars, and create some solutions or insights. I think we've all had enough retaliators and instigators. Yeah.
But we don't need to argue. Ultimately, I think is you and I are both interested in conversation, and conversation is great, but we don't need to argue. If you disliked everything we said today, it's okay, but you don't have to go wild in the comments.
All right. So next week, we can't wait to see you at the next show. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, Dennis, may the 4th be
Yes.
with you.
May the 4th be with you.